it occurred to me that 30 teams have mandatory minicamps this week. The Patriots got started yesterday. We're going to be talking a lot about them moving forward because they talked to the media yesterday, and there's some storylines there. But this is the culmination of the offseason program. This is it. And for most teams, it ends with the mandatory minicamp. The only teams that aren't doing the mandatory minicamp this week, the Lions, who canceled theirs because they show up early for training camp in advance of the Hall of Fame game appearance, and the Bears, who did their mandatory minicamp last week, and they're wrapping with a voluntary OTA period this week. So from your recollection of your time with the Patriots, your time in the NFL, is that mandatory minicamp week different? Does it feel different? Because it seems to the outside it's no different than the OTAs. It's just everybody has to be there.
Yeah, I think each team does it a little different, from obviously my brother playing and him being with different head coaches. That mandatory minicamp, the difference, from an OTA was the amount of hours you are now allowed to be in the building. When you hear minicamp, it's training camp. It's just mini. It's just 3 days of it instead of the whole summertime or a month of training camp. So he's been on some teams with some staffs where you would be in there in a true kind of training camp hours, call it 10 to 12 hours in those 3 days. You would be in there, and an OTA is a 6-hour day. So it's a big difference in New England because we had a lot of attendance during voluntary workouts for most of my career there. It was the same. We had a 6-hour day for OTAs. Maybe we added an extra hour and a half. But other than that, the day kind of ran exactly the same. The only difference was you had to be there. There was no excuses or something else. Unless Coach okayed it, you would have to be there. But the feeling, the vibe, everything about it was exactly the same as OTAs. It was usually a continuation of whatever we were working on before during OTAs, we would just extend it. So whether it was we got in a 2-minute drill on offense and defense, or we started talking about something different in special teams, we would just extend it right through that mini camp. So guys that miss some OTAs or guys that decided not to be at OTAs, it would be a little different from you unless you were a true veteran. Then you can come right back, pick up where you left off. But those mini camp days were exactly the same. And the best part was we usually had 3 days, and we knew it was good because usually Bill cut off that third day, and we would cancel it, and everyone would go and enjoy the rest of their summer.
So it wasn't like you'd go do paintball or bowling or go to a movie on that last day. He would just pull the plug on everybody, get to go home.
Sometimes there were some days, some years where we went paintballing, but there were a lot of days where it was just, all right, guys, this is it. Go enjoy the break, be back, and we get our 45 to an hour Bill Belichick kind of message before you left for the break. And what I loved was when you get to play somewhere for 13 years, it was exactly the same every single year. Maybe a few things here and there that he would add in a current events type of situation, but he would give us that same speech every single year going away about how many guys got in trouble and all of those things. So
tell us,
you always
go. What did he say? What did he say? If you heard it all those times, you probably have it memorized. Tell us what he said.
First, it would start off with you've already built a routine going into our month or a month and a half break. And he would tell guys with a lot of colorful language, let's not change our routine. Let's not start working out at 8 p.m. or waiting until, 5 p.m. when your guys are done with work and they're calling you and you're grabbing a drink here and you're not working out. Let's stay in a routine. We've built a routine for the summer. Let's stay at it. Then he would start reading all the different things, whether it was a year, 2 years prior to guys getting in trouble. And he would sometimes read headlines to articles, whether it was DUIs, whether it was guys, disorderly conduct out at night. He would start reading off all of these situations where guys would get arrested or get in trouble. And then we would hit the famous trifecta. If you played in New England, you've heard about the trifecta of what you would want to avoid during any off-season break, whether it was in the winter, whether it was in the summer. Trifecta was whenever you were in a situation and it had 3 things you knew trouble could be ahead. If it had a-holes, women, and alcohol, you knew those are the 3 things. When you put them all in one room, it was time to avoid. And you talk about, imagine a room with Edelman, Gronkowski, Hightower, Jamie. Like, we had so many guys who were characters that as soon as this conversation started, we probably hear Gronk cheering first, saying something crazy, and that's what would lead us into our break, leading off on the trifecta and the troubles that brings to any guys in those situations. So it was always fun knowing we were getting away from the place, but also leaving always under Belichick, leaving prepared for what was to come next.
And I don't recall a lot of New England guys getting in trouble during that 5 or 6 week window where I assume coaches sleep with one eye open. I mean, think about it. They finally get a chance to get a little bit of a break, and they have to spend the whole time, Devin, worried that they're going to get that proverbial 3 a.m. phone call that one of their guys who may already be, complying with one of the three things just by who they are, the a-hole category. You throw in the alcohol, you throw in the females, and the next thing you know, there's something. And I had an agent tell me years ago that so much of the fighting and the trouble that happens, it's like over a woman that they're competing for. They're trying to get their attention, and this guy's trying to show up that guy, and this guy thinks he's dating her, and that guy thinks he's dating her, and it turns into some big ugly mess, and it all blows up. And that's where, basically it's a twist on what Belichick told you. That's where most of the problems come from.
Exactly. And it's free time. I think when you come from college where everything is so scripted, everything you have to do, your schedule. I remember when we were in college, every day we have to show our time management sheet, which would have our day blocked off in hours, and it had to be all filled out. You get to the NFL and you're like, oh man, I got more free time. And then you get a break, like a true break. You really don't have to decide to do anything. I've played on teams where guys would come back from that break and say, man, the last time I worked out is when we were here. And they would go a month and a half without working out, without running or doing anything. So now what do you do to make up for that time? You spend the money that you have. You go out to clubs, you go out to bars, and you have a good time. And that's when trouble is coming, because you're not used to having that free time. You're not used to doing something constructive with that time. And that would always lead guys down the wrong path.
Did they have you try to police the guys that they thought might not work out hard enough, the guys that might get in trouble? Did they tap into the team leaders, say, hey, can you keep an eye on so-and-so over the next few weeks?
Definitely if there was some connection to where guys would spend their offseason. So if there were guys that would spend their offseason in New England, then you would definitely have some of the guys that stayed up there who would check in and say, hey, man, I'm going to work out at 8 a.m. tomorrow. You come, like different things like that. But it was hard because a lot of guys went back to either where they were from or where they decided to live in the offseason. So you wouldn't, that's what you just said. Coach is sleeping with one eye open. You lost all control during that time. And it was the most important time because of the way, especially once I got in the league, my second year was a new CBA. Off seasons had gotten shorter. So teams really wanted to hit the ground in training camp, kind of already moving forward, moving towards the opening day game, because you didn't have as much time to kind of start at the beginning, reset. Like I remember my first year in the NFL, I got the off season and we were there. When we got back in July, we kind of reset and started all over again with a lot of the same things. And as my year started progressing, we didn't do that as much. We kind of talked about, hey, we have less time. We don't have time to kind of do everything for the first 2 weeks or week and a half that we did before. We expect you guys to know it, and we got to get going. So you saw the advantages, I thought, throughout the NFL for teams that had a lot of guys work during that time and be ready to go. And you would know from, whether it was NFLPA meetings and stuff, when you would go and have this big kind of meeting with all the guys and you would talk about your teams a little bit, you could see a little bit of the difference of which teams were usually ready to go and had good years and which teams didn't.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that before. You were there for both the before and after with the 2011 CBA off-season program prior to the deal where, and the way it happened, this has always been my understanding, as the players were preparing to accept the NFL's financial offer, the players started making other demands, as they should, And the owners are like, well, what does that cost us? Nothing? Okay, we're fine with that. You want fewer padded practices? What's that cost us? Nothing? Okay, we're fine with that. Shorter off-season program? What's that cost us? Nothing? Okay, we're fine with it. And it pissed off a lot of the traditional football people because they ended up with less time. The coaches had less time to get their teams ready. So you were there before and after. Was it a significantly noticeable difference between pre- and post-2011 CBA?
For me, yeah, I only had 1 year of it, but I remember being a rookie in New England, and the way you would come in, we had a TV as you would turn the corner, and the TV would have the schedule for the day. And our schedule always had a morning practice, and then in the afternoon, it said another practice because back then you could have double sessions. So I got there, and I was just like, okay, double session today. And then the next day I came in, and I said to one of the guys, I was like, hey, man, we have a double session again today. And they were like, man, that TV never changes. Either that second practice is going to be a walkthrough or it's going to be a real practice. We never know. So I remember during my rookie year, I think we had like 6 or 7 straight double practice days during training camp because it was all under the idea of this is training camp. Let's get as much practice time as possible in. And when that next year came and double sessions were out and the amount of padded practices and all those things, it dramatically changed training camp and the regular season. My rookie year in the regular season, we went full pads during the playoff bye week. And then we came back during the week of the game and went full pads again. You couldn't do that anymore once the new CBA came in. You only have 14 full padded practices during the season, and then it reset during playoffs where you could have one. And that was a huge change, I think, from the way that Coach Belichick ran the team and how he believed that you practice. And that adjustment, I don't think it took a long time, but he had to really go back with the staff and think about how are we going to do this to the new CBA rules. And I'm sure it was like that for all the coaches who have been coaching for a long time previous to this new CBA.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.